Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Mary Hott. Mary Hott is a singer-songwriter based here in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Russell. Thanks for having me.
Give us Mary Hott's life in a nutshell.
Mary Hott's life in a nutshell. Well, I was born and raised here in Morgan County, over in Paw Paw. I was there until 18 and went to WVU as a piano major for a year and then went to New York City.
And what'd you do in New York City?
I did music, mostly focused on jazz at that point. Spent 6 years there, 1 year in DC, then up to New York City, back to Boston rather, and spent about 20 years in the Boston area, where I actually, as a musician, decided to make a living as a software engineer.
Right, to pay the bills.
But hey, I got to buy musical instruments and still perform. And then but the whole time I was, I think like a lot of people, I just was so drawn to come back to West Virginia. Every vacation was spent here with family or on the river.
What brought you back here?
Eventually, I got so sick of high tech and the rat race, and finally was in a situation where I could move back, and did.
What kind of music do you sing? What's the genre of music that you like?
Pretty much everything. Right now, if you heard me perform, it would be anything from country to blues rock, R&B, jazz.
If you had your druthers, would you be playing music all the time?
Oh yeah.
And why isn't that happening?
Because in my head, I probably just hadn't said, here's a way that you can make that work. But
Right, and that's probably true for most artists, right? They would like to spend their life doing it,
yeah.
but they can't figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. On the other hand, there's other things in life too, and the arts, in my mind, can permeate everything. So pretty much everything I've done has come back to the arts.
And how often do you perform? And where do you perform?
Right now, I haven't been performing maybe every other month, and mostly with jazz bands or some form of a jazz band, anywhere from 17 people all the way down to like 4 people. But this CD is taking me in a whole different direction, back to more of a roots sound.
Right, and this is a new project for you. Tell us about it. How did it come about?
Came about because I'm an avid West Virginia Public Broadcasting listener. And back in 2015, believe it or not, I've been doing this project since 2015, they ran a story on Halloween week about haunted places in the state. And one of the haunted places was this old coal company store in Fayette County called the Whipple Company Store.
Had you heard about it before then?
No, I had not heard about it. And they've had, ghost experts and everything in there, paranormal people investigating it. But the real horror that they uncovered was that people in their 80s and 90s who had been children in the 1910s and 20s in that coal camp started making pilgrimages back to the coal camp to tell their stories. It was like they had to get it out finally.
And what were the stories?
Things like rape, torture, mostly of mine guards, to keep control, to keep basically the miners and their families under control, to keep out unionization, is what it was. So what drew me to the story was not just that, but the fact that, and this is pre-Me Too movement, right? But was that we had state historians and other people say, we can't really prove this is true because we don't have any documented evidence of it. No one's talked about this before. We would have known about this, or the miners wouldn't have stood for this. It's like, hello. Today, after Me Too, we know how victims respond, and they don't talk, out of fear. And that was the whole idea. But that's what inspired me to write some songs about it, because people had started writing books about these stories, but no one was, I don't think enough people were reading the books and still not knowing about the stories. And I thought, well, if we set it to music and promote music, maybe more people would hear the stories.
We had a gentleman by the name of Doug Estep on our program
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he actually does something called coal country tours, where he takes people from here, this area, down to the coal fields. And the Whipple Country Store is it called the Company Store?
Company.
The Whipple Company Store is on the tour. It's one of the things they go
Not
to.
now, it isn't.
Because what happened?
The man and wife that purchased it when it was basically slated for demolition, it's the remaining coal company store that was owned by this one coal baron. The others, interestingly enough, one burned when the year he died, and the other the year after. But this one company store of his was still remaining. It was boarded up, and it was slated, it was for sale. And this private, like this woman who had grown up, her family were coal miners, decided they were going to buy it and make sure that it didn't get torn down. They were afraid that someone was just going to demolish it because one of the reasons is because it was the perfect spot for a Sheetz.
Wow.
It was at these four
Yes.
major corners,
Right.
in Fayette County, which Fayette County now has the New River Gorge and, all of that activity. From 2006 until 2018, that Joy and Charles Lynn owned that place and put their heart and soul into it, and she's the reason people came and she listened, and more people knew or heard about, hey, they're making the store, the old company store, into a museum, and Joy Lynn is writing down our stories. She's capturing what we experienced, and so we can share it safely. So they had to sell it. They mostly for health reasons. The person that bought it is a coal baron, so it's sitting there boarded up right now. We've been told that he's planning to finish restoring it, and give it to the state. But I don't know right now.
So you were inspired by the story that you heard, and you started writing songs, and now you have an album of songs. What's the title of the album?
Probably will be Devil in the Hills.
Devil in the Hills. And who is the devil in the hills?
Our unwillingness to acknowledge what we have done or what has been done to the people of West Virginia.
And you're talking about in the coal fields, or you're talking about all the people of West Virginia?
I'm talking all of West Virginia. I think it permeates. When I started on this, it started with just Whipple, and then it expanded into stories into northern West Virginia. And then I started looking at stories here in Morgan County when the canal went through. Here in Morgan County, we have plenty of unmarked graves.
How many songs are on the album?
There's 11 tracks. 7 of those are original, based on those. The others, there's one spoken word that is of one of these miners' stories, what he had to say. And then there's a couple more of gospel-oriented songs. So.
And I want to get into some of the songs, but
Yeah.
give us some detail on how you actually got this album made. Give us who were the musicians and how you did it.
Well, I was writing the songs, not even thinking about that. I was just I was reading and reading and reading, and the more I read, the more I found other sources to read, and even the movie Mate One, and there's a great documentary on the coal mine, coal wars. So as I was doing the research, writing the material, I finally got to a point where I had, basically the song. It was, words and a melody with some simple chord structures. And then it came to the point of, okay, now I've got to record this. And I hadn't really thought much about putting a band together. But in that previous year, I had started working some with the West Virginia Music Hall of Fame, and got to know the band the Carpenter Ants a little more, who perform all over the state. And I had noticed that they were recording as like a backup band to a lot of other singer-songwriters. So I approached Michael Lipton and said, hey, would you guys be the backup band for mine? Because I think the fit's perfect. And he said, absolutely. And then he said, let's get our producer in, Don Dixon. And I went like, really? Like, it's that easy to just have Don Dixon? Like, I think because it was Michael Lipton and the Carpenter Ants.
Well, and they were obviously excited about the project.
Yeah, well, and West Virginia Music Hall of Fame has a whole exhibit on music of the coal fields. So Michael had researched that a great deal too. So.
And then where was the album recorded, and how did that work?
In Charleston. I did have to take vacation days and travel down to do some rehearsals. I would send I'd send recordings of me strumming a guitar pretty badly and singing the songs, and then went down there. But it was really Michael has some music credit on the album too, because once they started playing with the music, it just became a much more richer sound. And in a few cases, probably on more than half of my original songs, I changed the melody or added stuff to it, just based on the way it was sounding.
Well, give us some ideas of some of the songs on the album. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned there was a song called Lillian. Is there still a song called
Annabelle Lee.
Annabelle Lee?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
What is that song about?
That song is about human trafficking.
In the coal fields.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that was a story out of northern West Virginia. It was about how coal agents, company agents, would come up to some of these towns and rent young girls between the ages of 12 and 18 usually, but as young as 12, and their parents would send them because they would basically, these are people who were, impoverished, had too many mouths to feed, and it was a way for the family to survive. And that's something that was a frequent theme of some of this was we did it to survive. What's really shocked me is even since in the last few weeks, January was Human Traffic Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. I found out that in Wheeling, West Virginia today, human trafficking is one of their worst crime problems. And there was an interview with a state police, official, or maybe it was a sheriff, but it was, a police official, who said here in Wheeling, our largest percentage of human trafficking is through family. And I thought, okay, there you go.
You mean families trying to make money by selling their children for
money?
For money.
Yeah, the reasons might be, I don't know. I don't know if
why are people buying children? Is this sexual slavery?
Yeah,
or
sexual slavery. Sometimes it is work for labor, free labor. Which is you go back to the coal mines. That was the reason for all of this, was these coal owners. This was 1890s when the coal mines were, by the time the railroads were built to get out the coal and enough wealthy people had come in to purchase the land out from under the original settlers here, to have all the mineral rights, to be able to mine, to build the mines, and there's a whole other story, a whole other dark past, right? But these were men, I started realizing these were men that were coming right off of abolition, the end of the Civil War, and they had been used to free labor, and here they are coming into the coal fields. They didn't want to pay. So that's where scrip, the company currency originated from. They'd pay their workers, usually at that time, in company currency. There were no ways to buy your food or anything, even your mining equipment you had to buy, except at the company store. So the men would go in and spend their wages in the company store. So technically, it was still slavery in a sense. We don't like to call it that.
Right. And
serfdom, how about that?
We sort of think that human trafficking is sort of like a foreign problem, because most articles that we read about human trafficking has to do with Southeast Asia and so forth.
Exactly.
But in fact, it's happening right in our backyards.
That's exactly right.
And it always has.
It always has. And I can now see where it's at least in West Virginia, you could say it at least started with the coal fields or the railroads, one of the two. But they were there doing this at the same time.
Give us some ideas of some of the other songs. Give us just a couple other songs that are on
Well,
the
another important one is called "Take the Esau," and that is
What is?
about
Are you saying Esau?
Esau.
What is Esau?
Esau. Let me explain. Esau and Jacob were two in the Bible, the Old Testament. It was a story about two twin brothers named Esau and Jacob. Esau was the firstborn, meaning he got in the Hebrew religion or faith, he would be the firstborn and receive all the birthright, as the firstborn son. His brother Jacob tricked him. So Esau was an avid hunter. He was on this long hunting expedition. He comes back to the tent starved and unable to hardly function. He was so starved that his brother Jacob tricked him into giving over his birthright for a bowl of porridge. So to name something Esau scrip, using because Esau is known, it's a story in the Bible about how someone gave up their birthright for a bowl of soup.
Did the coal companies name it Esau
Somebody,
scrip?
we don't know
We don't know who named it.
But it tells me, it proves to me that someone had really evil intent. They knew that, so what Esau was a special scrip given to women whose husbands had been injured and couldn't mine. If a husband wasn't mining, you were kicked out. It didn't matter. I mean, you were gone. But this was a way they would allow you to stay. It was like this 30-day credit. It was a little slip of paper, and it was issued by the superintendent. Joy Lynn found examples of it, and this was verified by a former bookkeeper. The bookkeeper tried to steal. She was trying to steal them from Joy. She said, people can't know about this. This is how closed-lipped these things were, because this bookkeeper says the women around here will be so, horrified if people know that they had to do this. So what they had to do was, if 30 days went by and your husband was back mining, the debt was forgiven, because it was used to buy food, right? Just to survive and stay in the company housing. If the man didn't go back to work in 30 days, women didn't make money. They were collateral. They were the collateral. So in some cases, it is true that in some cases the superintendent would assign them work. They would draw up baths for the miners. But in a lot of cases, it was sexual favors for the mine guards. People say, yeah, my grandma had to take the Esau. Or yeah, I know my mom had to take the Esau. My mother had to take the Esau. So this song, Take the Esau, is basically about that. And the final verse is that, the mother had no choice, had no options, had no voice.
You had to learn this by yourself.
Yeah.
So you just learned this over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and there was a break in there. After about a year and a half of research, I was like, it was like, why bother? I mean, I was overwhelmed, with the information, first of all. And then I was like, I can't do this. I can't write about this. And then it was actually the Me Too movement that just, it was like, yeah, it inspired me to go back and say, let's continue this. Let's just put it out there.
Were you surprised after singing blues and jazz all your life and country that you ended up in this place?
No. I was surprised by it at all.
But now you have an album that focuses light on this problem.
Yeah, I feel like this was maybe one of my purposes.
When will the album be available?
I'm hoping by late spring. It's been finished. The music's been finished. The mastering is almost finished, which is a final stage of the recording engineering. Even in today's world, it's like, do you put out a CD? Who buys CDs? But I was just so adamant about having a booklet. So I took today and tomorrow off, vacation days, because I'm finishing up that writing.
This will be a booklet that goes with the CD?
The CD, yeah.
So people who buy the CD will get this booklet explaining.
It besides having the song lyrics, of course, and all the typical credentials, it has background it basically explains every verse, story, the background stories.
And what do you planning in terms of performing the album and touring to promote it? What are you thinking?
I don't know what it looks like right now. All I know is that I want to perform it, take it around, and do some kind of combination of talk, audience feedback, and to tell the stories, but also perform.
Will you perform with a band, or will you perform solo? Or do you have a sense?
Yeah, it depends. I would certainly like to perform with a full band, and I'm sure that'll happen some. I have a local friend, Billy Thompson, guitarist, who has started learning the songs, and so we've done a little bit of duo work thanks to Miss Angela Petrie and her work with women's causes. We actually performed a couple of the songs, Billy and I together. And I've been honing my guitar skills over the past couple of years, so that I can do it solo if I need to. So.
And if people wanted more information about your project or your work generally, is there a website that people can go to?
Yes, my name, maryhott.com. Right now it points to my previous CD, which has nothing to do with this project, but that hopefully will change in the next week. That's another thing I'm working on. And there is a devilinthehills.com that will point to that, the same place.
All right, very good. Yeah. Congratulations on the album.
Thanks, Russell.
We look forward to the tour.
Me too.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.
Esau and Jacob, brothers, long ago. Bible tells us Esau sold his soul, gave up his birthright, traded for a meal. He kept from starving, but he got a raw deal. His brother lied and betrayed. Took Esau's birthright away. Mother took the Esau